Quincy High School also celebrated its senior class at their ceremony today. Those in attendance gathered at Flynn Memorial Stadium. Spectators filled the stands to watch as their students transitioned into the next chapter of their lives. The event included speeches from the salutatorian, valedictorian, class president, as well as from staff and the previous interim superintendent, Cal Lee. Lee gave students advice about what to do in their future endeavors.
Embrace the struggle because that's what leads to growth. Be somebody. Follow your dreams and pursue your passion with purpose. Whether entering the workforce, the military, or continuing in education, dream big.
During the ceremony, students celebrated not just their own transition onto the next phase of their lives, but also celebrated the staff who will be retiring at the end